tribute to the gray mascot.
See, there we go. It's Bob, right? Yours.
Thank you. Heather asked me to say a few words about Bob. Knowing me quite well, she said, keep it short and light. But I've never listened to my sister till now, so why start now? I got to know Bob a little bit before he actually came to Canada. As you know, Heather and her best friend Shirley embarked on an adventure in New Zealand. They both met the loves of their lives, and their adventures just began. Bob met Heather in December of 1973. In a letter home, she wrote, "Met a fellow who works with New Zealand Broadcasting, and I'm going out with him this afternoon. He seems quite nice. We're going to go to some kind of come and go party where there are all these broadcasting people." I was supposed to be quite impressed because they're all radio and TV announcers, but since we don't have a TV and I never listened to the radio, I didn't know any of them. That didn't go over very well. But he asked me out again anyway. But still, he asked her out and her letters were filled with their social life with Bob. In February, she was really quite fond of Bob. By March, she was defrosting his fridge. That's gotta be love. By April, they were engaged, and they arrived in Canada 3 weeks before their wedding. I'm not really sure what communication went on between my mom and Bob prior to him arriving in Canada, but I did see one letter he wrote. This was in May, and he said, "It's unlikely I will ever give up the drink completely." And if you know Bob, you know he didn't. "But I assure you I'm a moderate and I have no intentions of ruining my life through excess. And there's no way that you're ever going to have to exact vengeance on me because I am getting married for keeps and I'm determined to keep Heather happy and content." He did end with, "I love you also, and I'm really looking forward to arriving in Canada to meet you." It sounded to me like they had a fairly interesting relationship even then that extended on. Once their grandkids were born, Mom would do a grandkid tour, stopping at my brother's in Calgary and then my sister's in Edmonton. She delighted teasing Bob, and he really delighted in giving her a hard time. I recall getting a letter or a phone call from her one October. She was just thrilled because she had found the perfect birthday card for Bob. His birthday's in November. On the front of the card it said, "What does your birthday and Thanksgiving have in common?" Inside it said they were both celebrated with a turkey. I think this gives you a good example of the relationship between them. When they would take Mom to the bus for her to carry on with her grandkid tour, he was well known to say, "Thank God and Greyhound," under his breath when they said goodbye. Heather's a gracious host. They often entertained, but it wasn't unusual to have an evening end with Bob saying, "Here's your coat, and what's your hurry?" As you can tell, he did have a great sense of humor, although given the jokes that you've heard up to now, that's really hard to kind of understand. But he was a good sport, and he could take teasing as it was intended, as a show of affection. Speaking of sports, he was a good sportsman. Through his work with New Zealand Broadcasting and CBC and his personal life, he was a real sports enthusiast. Later, that played it out on the golf course, and John talked about how good of a golfer he was. I don't know about that. I don't know if he ever got a hole in one, but I do remember seeing some pictures of a tree in one, where you could see his golf ball firmly wedged in the branches of a tree, and I can just imagine Bob sitting there going, "I wonder what kind of iron I would have to use to get it out of there so I don't have to take a penalty shot." He encouraged sports in his girls as well. Emily described him as not your traditional feminist, but growing up she never knew that there were things that girls were supposed to do and things that they were not supposed to do. He was never afraid to let his girls know how proud he was of them. When Emily's curling team made the city championship last year, he made a big deal of it, and at the end of the game he came up to her and said he was really proud of her, and she kind of blew it off. and said, oh, you know, I'm really happy with the team, they made some great shots, that kind of thing. But he stopped her right away. I'm not looking at you, Emily. Saying he was happy for the team, but he was really proud of her. They've already said Bob was a great writer, enjoyed writing. I don't think he was a great poet, though. I know he tried that. He did write a poem when he first came to Canada. He talked about his love for Heather and his move to Canada. But the rhyming couplet, one of the rhyming couplets, he rhymed 1974 and Moose Jor. Bob, as we've said, is a real entertainer. He spent many years entertaining people in the care homes, playing piano, telling his bad dad jokes, doing sing-alongs. But we often talked about what a sense of joy he got from some of the seniors who were quite challenged when they came alert and sang along when he played some of the tunes from their era. Music, he felt, feeds the soul and reaches people in ways that words cannot. And as you can see from Heather's video, Bob was every bit a showman. Costuming up for Klondike Days and his performances in the care home. He was also a really good organizer and was involved in the community, both in the community of St. Albert and in the small community of his neighborhood in St. Albert. In fact, he kept an eye on the neighbors, kind of bordering on spying at times, but was always willing to lend a hand. And this community mindedness really passed on to his daughters who were involved in their communities as well. I think this shows how big of a heart Bob had and how much he cared for others. He was interested in people, he was extremely outgoing, and would chat with anyone, right, Heather?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Not only would he chat, but he would listen. He asked questions about their lives, and after about a 10-minute meeting, Bob would be able to tell you their life story. That's probably why he developed such a strong, lasting relationship with so many people. He appreciated meaningful conversations, often encouraged controversial topics at the dinner table, but, as Emily said, he hated arguments and would shut things down when it got to that point, but really no topic was off limits. He was a very proud husband and granddad. He loved his family dearly and was very protective. I'm sure at that time that made him a little hard to live with, right, Emily? Right, Krista? But I do know one thing for sure, it's going to make him a hard man to live without. In May of 1973, Bob wrote another letter to Mom and introduced himself. My name is Robert Gray, Robert John Gray. I'm 29, never married, 6'1", I weigh about 13 stones, I'm fair in complexion, and have lost a great deal of my hair. I'm known to my friends and my fiance as Bob, my dad and my family as Rob, and my mother is Robert. I guess I'm a pretty average sort of Kiwi, fairly easygoing, I love my sport, enjoy the odd pint of ale here or there, have given up smoking, and my greatest ambition is to be happy and earn some sort of respect from all those with whom I've come in contact. You succeeded, Bob. Now rest in peace. You earned it.
Thank you, Dorothy. That's very nice. Very nice. One thing Dorothy might want to know is that when Bob went golfing, he always carried an extra pair of socks in his golf bag, in case he got a hole in one. Boy, I gotta get back at these, right? Bob came from a very musical family, as we've heard earlier. His dad played the piano, Bob and sisters and siblings all played. He even had a family band and practiced often. Bob's mother always selected the songs to play, and she even said her sewing machine was a singer. The talent is carried into the family. And we have Becky Timmons now, who's going to sing, Bob's niece, who wants to sing a couple of Bob's favorite songs for us.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. lost sinners was slain. So I'll perish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down, and I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. And to the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. And then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. And so I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down, and I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. And I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me is closing. But he bids me go with a voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
Thank you very much. Well, get ready. Here's another one for you. Being as Bob and I were joggers, I don't jog, but I walk now, but I just burned 2,000 calories today. That's the last time I leave brownies in the oven while I take a nap. I'd like to give you some insight now at this part of the session of my contributions to this celebration. And there's one story of Bob I'd like to share with you. It was in the summer of 1995. Bob and I went through major career-ending situations. Being as we jogged every day, we found ourselves sharing our feelings on our career demises. Bob believes in short and sweet. Just remember that as we get into the next one. I mean no respect to Northland's management, but this is our Bob. Of course, you get that call to the HR office and face the music. Management advised Bob that they were changing course and going into the entertainment business. We all know Bob, and that meeting did not last much longer as he stood up, pulled out his office key, entry badges, charge cards, slammed them on the desktop and said, "You guys can't even spell entertainment, let alone know what entertainment is." With that, he left the office. That is our true Bob. He always said it, and that's one thing I always enjoyed about Bob. You knew where you stood, and he told you. We all know how this played out, but it shows the Bob we all know. Bob had a heart of gold, was a builder, wanted others to succeed, was loyal. Entertainment was the front. It was what was behind the scenes that I would like to share some of the background to his time at Northlands and us on the jogging trail. We all know the Taste of Edmonton, as has been mentioned, but some info you may not remember or know is that the Taste of Edmonton was a 5-door indoor event and not doing well. And Bob brought it into Northlands and turned it into a 10-day outdoor venue at the same time as Klondike Days, and opened up not only to taste, but entertainment with bandstands for local talent to entertain and have an opportunity to grow their talent and entertain attendees at the same time. One interesting story is that you had to purchase paper tickets to give to the vendors to get your taste plate. And there would be thousands of tickets. And being an accountant, I asked Bob, who counted them, as the vendors got paid from Northlands for tickets used at their booth. Bob had developed a system that they weighed the tickets and paid by the pound, as they knew how many tickets were in a pound. The vendors figured that out, and some figured it out that a wet ticket weighed more than a dry ticket. Of course, it did rain when Taste was on, so it may have sounded logical that some tickets would be wet. Bob spotted this very quickly, and when they showed up with their tickets wrapped in a damp towel, he took them and dried them out in the boardroom on the tables, and then figured out what he owed. Of course, Bob brought in the likes of the feature country each year, exotic animals, local entertainers walking throughout the fairgrounds, the TELUS stage, again, where local talent could perform and gain experience as well as entertain. One sector was for seniors, where he brought in entertainers like Bobby Curtola, Tommy Hunter, Charlie Pride, Stompin' Tom, etc. Entertainers who were later on in their careers, but individuals, local seniors, would have had no chance to see live. Great success. So successful that a young guy named Brian Edwards started a business to do that just across Canada. And Bob was one of the first to give him contacts. And after that, Brian always used Bob to help when the shows were in Edmonton. And Chris often worked the shows selling merchandise. The entertainers knew Bob and always met with him when in the area. As you have heard, Bob in retirement started to volunteer and play music, sing along at seniors' homes. Actually, Bob got started on 97th Street. Some of you may recall the trade that worked on 97th Street. I had a client office on 97th Street and always had an outdoor barbecue for my client staff on 97th. And I hired Bob to come and play his keyboard at the luncheon with all his Klondike music. He said it was his first paid gig. He then went on to volunteering in seniors' homes. You may not know, but Bob not only played at the homes, but if there was an individual who used to work at Northlands, or an individual he knew, he would stop in and visit them after he did his performances. Even when he talked to me, he said they probably didn't know who I was, but I went there and said hi anyway. He even went to see my mother, who was in a residence he performed at, and it's something that how many people do that today. Bob also ran a youth talent competition during Klondike Days for local youth in Edmonton and Northern Alberta, with the winner going to Memphis to compete in a talent show. Recall in the early days, travel, going to Memphis, it was a big deal. And so our young entertainers, one entertainer and their family, got an experience that they would never forget. I'm sure there were many who used that as a springboard to career. And one of those was Clayton Bellamy, who was a contestant one year in Northlands, and now travels Canada and US entertaining, and resides in Nashville performing and making music. Bob also used young people at Klondike Days to run events, support the fair, etc. And many used that as a springboard to their careers, with some even going on to work full-time for Northlands. Bob knew what he was doing, developing talent to entertain and support entertainment. Bob never made a mistake. Well, that may not be true. Let's recall the fireworks show each night at the closing of the fair. Alan Osmond was putting on the fireworks show, and all was set for the first night, and everybody waiting in anticipation. and 2 beautiful fireworks went up, and then the infield automatic sprinkler system came on. And well, water and fireworks do not mix, and guess who forgot to turn the sprinkler off? Bob won the award that year for the biggest mistake during the show. Bob also brought in chuck wagon races, Canadian Finals Rodeo, Farm Fair, which allowed individuals to perform, local businesses to sell their products like trucks during the CFR, sell cattle, etc. at Farm Fair. Due to the various political issues, where did they all go? What does 60-40 mean to Bob? Bob and Conklin shows run by Al Phillips worked close for years and used to golf every year at Kananaskis Park. Bob, always the competitive one, went out in 60 on the first 9 holes, and of course was not in the best humor, having a few words to himself on his golf game. Alf told him to take a breath and enjoy the scenery. Bob did the back 9 at 40. Every year after that, including this year, Alf sent a card and always wrote on it, 60-40. I could just imagine Bob after the game saying, and after the first 9 holes, it takes a lot of balls to golf the way I do. Bob, play the piano and sing with the angels, but maybe hold on the jokes. God bless my friend. At this point, I would like to open it up now to anybody in the audience who would like to come up and pass along a joke and chat with us. We do have a bit of a time constraint at 4:30 today, but I think we have time. But if you do have a joke or something you'd like to say short for Bob, we'd probably like to hear it, but just keep it short and sweet. So is there anybody here that would like to add a few words? Fantastic, here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Gibbons, and I am the former director of the Groovy Gang, which is a seniors choir in St. Albert, which Bob played for us as our pianist. This was his last career, I believe, and we didn't know how varied a career he'd had when he volunteered to come and play for us. I think it was 16, 17, 18 years ago that Bob came to us, and we just came to love him and enjoy his jokes every week. We had a practice every Monday, and every Monday Bob had a joke for us, and we were always really happy with that. This afternoon, I got a tear in my eye, and the reason I got it in is because when Bob was playing the music behind this video, those were all the songs he used to play for us, and that we would take to the seniors' homes in Edmonton and St. Albert and Morinville and out to Legal and all over the place. And Bob was always there playing with a smile and as was said before, greeting the people and talking with them. And we have in the last 2 or 3 years dearly missed him, and we're going to miss him, but we'll never ever forget him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Nobody has any good jokes? Leave it. You're going to leave it to me. What did the buffalo say to his son as he went off to school? Bison. As we close here this afternoon on behalf of the family, I'd like to thank all of you for attending, and for those on live stream and unable to attend today, thanks for doing that. I know Heather would really appreciate a phone call or visit in the new year to keep in touch and perhaps exchange some stories for those that are on the live stream and unable to be with us today. I believe the lunch is coming out shortly. Oh, okay. And so let's enjoy some good memories and great times. And when the food does come out, we'll have the family start, and then each table will take a turn. And as one would say, and Bob playing tennis, game, set, match, lights out.